congressional ordered probe took investigators back to the 1980s when an Air Force colonel visited a bar near Area 51, a top secret site in the Nevada desert. He gave the owner photos of what might be flying saucers. The photos went up onto the walls, and into local law went the idea that the US military was secretly testing recovered alien technology. But the colonel was on a mission of disinformation. The photos were doctored. The now retired officer confessed to the Pentagon investigators in 2023. The whole exercise was a ruse to protect what was really going on at Area 51. Namely, the Air Force was using the site to develop top secret stealth fighters viewed as a critical edge against the Soviet Union. Military leaders were worried that the programs might be exposed if locals somehow glimpsed a test flight of, say, the F-117 stealth fighter, an aircraft that truly did look out of this world, better than they believe it came from Andromeda. Okay, so the other thing I'd like to say about Area 51 is that, as far as I'm aware, the US government didn't even acknowledge its existence till about 12 years ago. Until then, they just denied it even existed. So why would a colonel be going out to a cafe or a bar or wherever it was he went with doctored photos going on about UFOs and whatnot if the place didn't even exist? They wouldn't even be, surely to God, he wouldn't be trying to say, oh yeah, we've got this base there and it's looking at back engineering UFOs and all this carry on, would he? Right, if they didn't even, the American government didn't even acknowledge its existence. The whole thing is just an absolute shambles. I don't think anyone's in control of it. I think the whole thing is an absolute mess. A mess. And this just sums it up. This whole saga that the WSJ has looked into, for me, it's just another piece of evidence that says the whole what a mess and shambles this whole thing is. It is a complete shambles. Honestly, it really is. And it has to be also said that it has orchestrated a worldwide program of disinformation regarding UFOs to meet its own agenda for at least the last 80 years, if not longer. And this has involved the following: terrifying people of all ages, going about their business, abducting people and conducting all sorts of bizarre and awful experiments on them, leaving many of them with psychological, mental scars and physical scars for life, physically attacking people who are no threat to them or not displaying any signs of aggression towards them.
Go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. But the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. I'm at the foot of the ladder. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Right, hi everyone. I hope you're all really well. Hope you're having a great day, whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing it in the world. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Warren. This is my YouTube channel. Welcome to Warren's Mysterious World. And in this channel, I'm going to be discussing things to do with the unexplained, paranormal, and those such topics. Now, I hope you're going to enjoy that. I've been doing this for a while now. But today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about the article which appeared in the Wall Street Journal on the 5th of June about UFOs, because it's an interesting piece of work, and I think you'll find it quite interesting as well. So please put in the comments what your thoughts are about the article. I have got a copy of the article if anyone wants to see it. If you do want to see it, please contact me through my Instagram page, and you can get me there by just looking up Warren's Mysterious World. You'll find me. Just send me a message, and I will endeavour to send it to you, or contact me on X as well. You can find me there. But yeah, so what I'm going to do today, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to read the article, and then I'm going to tell you what I think about it. So I hope that's okay. I hope people are going to enjoy it. So let's pull up the article, and then I'll start reading it. Here we go. What's going on? Let's remove. Right, okay. Right, so here it is. Well, it's a bit small for me to read. Hold on. I'll do my best. So it says the Pentagon disinformation that fueled America's UFO mythology. So that's the title of the article. It was written by someone by the name of Joel Schechtman, I believe, and I think that says, I can't really read it, Aruna Vesmantha or something. But anyway, it goes on to say, a tiny Pentagon office spent months investigating conspiracy theories about secret Washington UFO programs when it uncovered a shocking truth. At least one of these theories has been fueled by the Pentagon itself. The congressional ordered probe took investigators back to the 1980s when an Air Force colonel visited a bar near Area 51, a top secret site in the Nevada desert. He gave the owner photos of what might be flying saucers. The photos went up onto the walls, and into local law went the idea that the US military was secretly testing recovered alien technology. But the colonel was on a mission of disinformation. The photos were doctored. The now retired officer confessed to the Pentagon investigators in 2023. The whole exercise was a ruse to protect what was really going on at Area 51. Namely, the Air Force was using the site to develop top secret stealth fighters viewed as a critical edge against the Soviet Union. Military leaders were worried that the programs might be exposed if locals somehow glimpsed a test flight of, say, the F-117 stealth fighter, an aircraft that truly did look out of this world, better than they believe it came from Andromeda. The episode reported now for the first time was just one of a series of discoveries the Pentagon team made as it investigated the decades of claims that Washington was hiding what it knew about extraterrestrial life. That effort culminated in a report released last year by the Defense Department that found the allegations of a government cover-up to be baseless. In fact, a Wall Street Journal investigation reveals that the report itself amounted to a cover-up, but not in the way UFO conspiracy industry would have people believe. The public disclosure left the truth behind some of the foundational myths about UFOs. The Pentagon itself sometimes... what's going on? Hold on, I've lost it. That's better, I can see what I'm doing now. Sometimes deliberately fanned the flames in what accounted to the US government targeting its own citizens with disinformation. At the same time, the very nature of Pentagon operations as an opaque bureaucracy that kept secret programs embedded within secret programs, cloaked in cover stories, created fertile ground for the myths to spread. These findings represent a stunning new twist in the story of America's cultural obsession with UFOs. In the decades after a 1938 radio broadcast of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds spread panic throughout the country, speculation about alien visitors remained largely the province of supermarket tabloids, Hollywood blockbusters, and costume conferences in Las Vegas. More recently, things took an ominous turn when a handful of former Pentagon officials went public with allegations of a government program to exploit extraterrestrial technology and hide it from Americans. Those claims led to the Pentagon's investigation. Now evidence is emerging that government efforts to propagate UFO mythology date back all the way to the 1950s. The account is based on interviews with 24 current and former US officials, scientists, and military contractors involved in the inquiry, as well as thousands of pages of documents, recordings, emails, and text messages. Now, what's interesting to me about it, this is the only thing I'm going to say before I finish reading it. At no point in this document does it say what those documents were, well, the names of these people, nothing. So you have to take that with a pinch of salt. Right, hold on, let me just see if I can get this a bit bigger. Hold on just a sec. Oh, that's better. At times, as with the deception around Area 51, military officers spread false documents to create a smokescreen for real secret weapons programs. In other cases, officials allowed UFO myths to take root in the interest of national security. For instance, to prevent the Soviet Union from detecting vulnerability in the systems protecting nuclear installations. Stories tended to take on a life of their own, such as the 3-decade journey of a purported piece of space metal that turned out to be nothing of the sort, and one long-running practice was more like a fraternity hazing ritual than that spun wildly out of control. Investigators are still trying to determine whether the spread of disinformation was the act of local commanders and officers or a more centralized institutional program. The Pentagon omitted key facts in the public version of the 2024 report that could have helped put some UFO rumors to rest, both to protect the classified secrets and to avoid embarrassment. The journal investigation found. So the Air Force in particular was pushed to omit some details it believed could jeopardize secret programs and damage careers. The lack of full transparency has only given more fuel to conspiracy theories. Members of Congress have formed a caucus composed mainly of Republicans to examine unidentified anonymous phenomena, or UAP in bureaucratic speak. The caucus has demanded the intelligence community disclose which agencies are involved with UAP crash retrieval programs. MAGA skepticism about the deep state further feeds the notion that government bureaucrats have been keeping those secrets from the American public. At a November hearing of 2 House Oversight Committees, Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, cast doubt on the Pentagon's report. "I'm not a mathematician, but I can tell you that just doesn't add up," she said. So, Sean Kirkpatrick, a precise, bespectacled scientist who once spent years studying vibrations in laser crystals, was nearing retirement from government service when he received the call that would change his life. By 2022, he had ascended to chief scientist at the Missile and Space Intelligence Center at the Redstone Arsenal near Huntsville, Huntsville, ALA. As he sat at his desk at 6:30 one morning, drinking coffee and skimming through intelligence reports that had come in overnight, his Tandberg desk phone, essentially a classified version of FaceTime, rang. It was a deputy undersecretary from the Pentagon who was putting on a tie as he told Kirkpatrick about a new office Congress ordered the department to set up to examine unidentified anonymous phenomena. The undersecretary and I put together a shortlist of who could do it, and you're at the top, the official relayed, adding that they had settled on Kirkpatrick because he had both a scientific background and he had built a half dozen organizations within the intelligence community. Is that the real reason, Kirkpatrick countered, or am I the only one stupid enough to say yes? In short order, Kirkpatrick had the All-Domain Anonymous Resolution Office, otherwise known as AARO, up and running. Just the latest in an alphabet soup of special government projects set up to study UFOs stretching back more than a half century. Aero, as it is known, operated out of an unmarked office near the Pentagon with a few dozen staff and a classified budget. The mission fell into two buckets. One was to collect data on sightings, particularly around military installations, and assess whether they could be explained by earthly technology. Amid growing public attention, the number of such reports had skyrocketed in recent years to 757 in the 12 months after May 2023, from 144 between 2004 to 2021. Aero linked most of the incidents to balloons, birds, and the proliferation of drones cluttering the skies. Many pilots' accounts of floating orbs were actually reflections of the sun. From Starlink satellites, investigators found they are still examining whether some unexplained events could be foreign technology, such as Chinese aircraft using next-generation cloaking methods that distort their appearance. The office found that some seemingly inexplicable events weren't so strange after all. In one, a 2015 video appeared to show a spherical object buzzing past a jet fighter and at an almost impossible speed. "Oh my gosh, dude," the pilot can be heard saying in the video, laughing. But later, investigators determined there was nothing much to see. Whatever the object was, the camera angle and relative speed of the jet had made it appear to be going much faster than it was. The office's second mission was proved to be more peculiar, to review the historical record going back to 1945 to assess the claims made by dozens of former military employees that Washington operated a secret program to harvest alien technology. Congress granted the office unprecedented access to America's most highly classified programs to allow Kirkpatrick's team to run the stories to ground. As Kirkpatrick pursued his investigation, he started to uncover a hall of mirrors within the Pentagon, cloaked in official and non-official cover. On one level, the secrecy was understandable. The US, after all, had been locked in an existential battle with the Soviet Union for decades, each side determined to win the upper hand in the race for ever more exotic weapons. But Kirkpatrick soon discovered that some of the obsession with secrecy verged on the farcical. A former Air Force officer was visibly terrified when he told Kirkpatrick's investigators that he had been briefed on a secret alien project decades earlier and was warned that if he ever repeated the secret, he could be jailed or executed. He could be jailed or executed. The claim would be repeated to investigators by other men who had never spoken to the matter, even with their spouses. It turned out that the witnesses had been victims of a bizarre hazing ritual. For decades, certain new commanders of the Air Force's most classified programs, as part of their induction briefings, would be handed a piece of paper with a photo of what looked like a flying saucer. The craft was described as an anti-gravity maneuvering vehicle. The officers were told that the program they were joining, dubbed Yankee Blue, was part of an effort to reverse engineer the technology on the craft. They were told never to mention it again. Many never learned it was fake. Kirkpatrick found the practice had been begun decades before and appeared to continue still. The Defense Secretary's office sent a memo out across the service in the spring of 2023, ordering that the practice should be stopped immediately, but the damage was done. Investigators are still trying to determine why officers had misled subordinates, whether as some type of loyalty test, a more deliberate attempt to deceive, or whether investigators are still trying to determine why officers had misled subordinates, whether as some type of loyalty test, a more deliberate attempt to deceive, or something else. After that 2023 discovery, Kirkpatrick's deputy briefed President Joe Biden's Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, who was stunned. Could this be the basis for the persistent belief that the US has an alien program that we've concealed from the American people? Hayes wanted to know. According to people familiar with the matter, how extensive was it, she asked. The official responded, Mum, we know it went on for decades. We are talking about hundreds and hundreds of people. These men signed NDAs. They thought it was real. NDA, by the way, is a non-disclosure agreement. The finding could have been devastating to the Air Force. The service was particularly sensitive to the allegations of hazing and asked that Aero hold off including the finding in the public report, even after Kirkpatrick had briefed lawmakers on the episode. Kirkpatrick retired before the report was finished and released. In a statement, the Defense Department spokeswoman acknowledged that Aero had uncovered evidence of fake classified program materials relating to extraterrestrials and had briefed lawmakers and intelligence officials. The spokeswoman, Sue Goff, said the department didn't include that information in its report last year because the investigation wasn't completed, but expects to provide it in another report scheduled for later this year. The department is also committed to releasing a second volume of its historical record report to include Aero's findings and reports of potential pranks and inauthentic materials, Goff said. So Kirkpatrick's investigated another mystery that stretched back 60 years. In 1967, Robert Salas, now 84, was an Air Force captain sitting in a walk-in closet-sized bunker. The controls of 10 nuclear missiles. In 1967, Robert Salas, now 84, was an Air Force captain sitting in a walk-in closet-sized bunker, manning the controls of 10 nuclear missiles in Montana. He was prepared to launch apocalyptic strikes should Soviet Russia ever attack first, and got a call around 8 p.m. one night from the guard station above. A glowing reddish-orange oval was hovering over the front gate, Salas told Kirkpatrick's investigators. The guards had their rifles drawn, pointed at the oval object appearing to float above the gate. A horn sounded in the bunker, signaling a problem with the control system. All 10 missiles were disabled. Salas soon learned a similar event occurred at other silos nearby. Were they under attack? Salas never got an answer. The next morning, a helicopter was waiting to take Salas back to base. Once there, he was ordered never to discuss the incident. Salas was one of 5 men interviewed by Kirkpatrick's team who witnessed such events in the 60s and 70s. While sworn to secrecy, the man began sharing the stories in the 90s in books and documentaries. Kirkpatrick's team dug into the story and discovered a terrestrial explanation. The barriers of concrete and steel surrounding America's nuclear missiles were thick enough to give them a chance if hit first by a Soviet strike. But scientists at the time feared the intense storm of electromagnetic waves generated by a nuclear detonation might render the hardware needed to launch a counterstrike unusable. To test this vulnerability, the Air Force developed an exotic electromagnetic generator that simulated this pulse of disruptive energy without the need to detonate a nuclear weapon. When activated, this device, placed on a portable platform 60 feet above the facility, would gather power until it glowed, sometimes with a blinding orange light. It would then fire a burst of energy that could resemble lightning. The electromagnetic pulses snaked down cables connected to the bunker where launch commanders like Salis sat, disrupting the guidance systems, disabling the weapons and haunting the men to this day. But any public leak of the test at that time would have allowed Russia to know that America's nuclear arsenal could be disabled in a first strike. The witnesses were kept in the dark. To this day, Salis believes he was party to an intergalactic intervention to stop nuclear war, which the government had tried to hide. He is half right, though. The experience left the octogenarian deeply sceptical of the US military and its ability to tell the truth. There is a gigantic cover-up, not only by the Air Force, but every other federal agency that has ordnance of this subject, he said in an interview with the Journal. We were never briefed on the activities that were going on. The Air Force shut us out of any information. Concealing the truth from men like Salis and deliberate efforts to target the public with disinformation unleashed within the halls of the Pentagon itself, a dangerous force which would become almost unstoppable as decades passed. The paranoid mythology the US military helped spread has a hold of a growing number of its own senior officials who count themselves as believers. The crisis grew to a boil over a piece of metal mailed to a late-night radio host in 1996, which the sender said they had been told was part of a crashed spaceship. And that's the end of the article. Now, I don't know what you guys think about that, but leave your comments in the description of the video, in the description. Let me know what you think, because I'm going to tell you what I think, all right, okay? But, so let's go through my thoughts on it. So let's do, I'm going to try and do it a different way than what I would normally. I hope this is going to work. No, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, let's do it that way. Right, okay, so I'm going to just... Hold on. Sorry, guys. Fucking computer, honestly. It's dog shit. Okay. Just give me 2 minutes because I want to make sure that I do this properly. Right, okay, so I'm going to tell you what I've done. I've done some notes for myself. and I'm going to throw some slides up as we talk in, just to enforce the story or my thoughts. Okay, so let's start off looking at the article. So first of all, I'm sure that the journalists that wrote this article, which there's two of them, I'm sure that they're excellent journalists, and the Wall Street Journal itself, as a newspaper, has a reputation all over the world for excellent journalism. And it has this reputation all over the world for a reason. And it did not get that reputation because it employs substandard journalists. That's the first thing I want to say about it, right? So the second thing I want to say about it is that I found the article to be deeply disturbing on many levels, upsetting, and at points it left me feeling extremely angry. So I have to ask the questions. One, was the Wall Street Journal asked or coerced to write this article? It strengthened my belief that client journalism is a real thing, because I know it exists here in the UK, because I know that certain football clubs, soccer clubs, are engaged in the activity. Where did they get the information from for this article? As it seems to me, it's highly dubious, to say the least. There was a claim that seems to run through the article that the UFO phenomena dates to the 1940s, which is, as we know, is false. Which we know is false. UFO sightings date back as long as humans have walked planet Earth. Yet the article also reports that a United States Air Force colonel took photographs out to a bar near Area 51, which was part of a ruse to protect what was really going on at Area 51. Okay, so the other thing I'd like to say about Area 51 is that, as far as I'm aware, the US government didn't even acknowledge its existence till about 12 years ago. Until then, they just denied it even existed. So why would a colonel be going out to a cafe or a bar or wherever it was he went with doctored photos going on about UFOs and whatnot, if the place didn't even exist? They wouldn't even be, surely to God, he wouldn't be trying to say, oh yeah, we've got this base there and it's looking at back engineering UFOs and all this carry on, would he? Right, if they didn't even, the American government didn't even acknowledge its existence. The whole thing is just an absolute shambles. I don't think anyone's in control of it. I think the whole thing is an absolute mess. A mess. And this just sums it up. This whole saga that the WSJ has looked into, for me, it's just another piece of evidence that says the whole what a mess and shambles this whole thing is. It is a complete shambles. Honestly, it really is. So, for example, the testing of the stealth fighter, allegedly they were happy for locals who may inadvertently see the stealth fighter being tested believe that it was actually a UFO rather than the United States Air Force testing new aircraft, and be terrified half to death into the bargain. So how many of these stealth fighters So how many of these stealth fighters have the performance characteristics that these UFOs that have been sighted in the area and the world around the world have? I can tell you, none. None. So how many years ago? Now, many years ago, I did have a thought and a feeling that the world's governments may be using the UFO phenomenon to cover up something far more sinister. And I'm still not 100% convinced that this may be part of what is going on. I had no doubt that we were being visited by civilizations from elsewhere, but I did think that our governments were using the phenomena to divert attention away from that something else. What the something else is, don't ask me, because I don't know. But it would make sense to me if that was what was going on. But I am sure that whatever it was that they were diverting attention wasn't anything good, that's for sure. Now, the Wall Street Journal article also alleges that the US government was deliberately targeting its citizens with a disinformation program over many decades, which dates back as far as the 1950s. If this is true, for me it shows that the powers that be, stroke US military, hold the public in complete and utter contempt. So the problem with the assertion that the UFO phenomena dates back to the 1950s is that it doesn't, and it is a worldwide phenomenon, not a US one. If this is true, and it was a US phenomenon, then what was Rendlesham Forest and all the other UFO sightings, stroke encounters from all over the world all about? Because every single country on planet Earth has a UFO story, or at least several, like running into thousands of UFO encounters and stories. But we'll discuss more of that later. So in the article, in the Wall Street Journal article, it also claims that the Pentagon omitted key facts in the public version of the 2024 report that could have helped put some UFO rumors to rest, both to protect classified secrets and to avoid embarrassment. The journal investigation found the Air Force in particular pushed to omit some details that it believed could jeopardize secret programs and damage careers. So my question is, what were they? What were these things that were omitted? Now, the Wall Street Journal claims that MAGA skepticism about the deep state further feeds the notion that government bureaucrats have been keeping those secrets from the American public. So my question would be, if there's nothing for the public to be skeptical about, then what are all these trillions of dollars of American taxpayers' money and the failed audits of the Pentagon all about? Throughout the article, it claims that even within the Pentagon, there was a disinformation campaign, which was even enacted upon its own staff, which was supported by staff being forced to sign non-disclosure agreements and threatened with jail or execution if they broke those non-disclosure agreements. On September the 10th, 2001, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld announced that there was $2.3 trillion, there was approximately $2.3 trillion which could not be accounted for within the Department of Defense expenditures. The very next day, the Pentagon's Budget Analyst Office was destroyed in the 9/11 attack. Therefore, this leads me to ask what is behind this veil of subterfuge, lies, gaslighting, and cover-ups. Could it be an effort to divert attention away from something far more sinister? an effort to discredit the idea that the US is working on trying to back engineer non-human intelligence technology, or the world's governments, as we know them, are not really running things. They're merely a front for the real powers in this world, whoever or whatever that may be. So for me, it seems that there is a massive refusal from the Department of Defense, Pentagon, etc., to cooperate with the will of the US elected officials on this issue, and to have an organisation based within the aforementioned organisations who are so clearly hostile to pulling back the veil which has been masking this phenomena, is to not put too fine a point on it, like putting Dracula in charge of a blood bank. So the article then goes on to attempt to address another issue which I personally find extremely disturbing and concerning with regards to the UFO phenomena, and that is the way that these craft seem highly interested in the world's most sophisticated weapons systems, not just in the United States of America, but all over the world. And there have been multiple reports all over the world and of UFOs turning up all over the sites of where these weapons are located and powering them down, and even on at least one occasion powering them up and entering them into their launch modes, an event which, if they had launched, would have undoubtedly sparked World War III and the end of our civilization as we know it. The Wall Street Journal article states that the scenario that I have just described was a test conducted by the US military using an exotic electromagnetic generator. It is alleged that this technology would be placed on a portable platform 60 feet above the facility, gather enough power until it glows, and then fire a burst of electromagnetic pulse energy down the cabling connected to the bunker where the launch and guidance systems were housed for the nuclear weapons, and disable the weapons. There are several problems for me with this story, but in particular the main one is that no one on this planet, as far as I'm aware, had this electromagnetic generator technology at the time. That these incidents happened with nuclear weapons, being taken offline. It also ignores the fact that there have also been instances where UFOs have appeared over these military installations and have been able to fire up nuclear missiles by entering their highly secret launch codes and then power them down again before disappearing. As well as the fact that the same scenario has happened at other non-US military bases in both friendly and unfriendly countries of the United States of America. So what is really going on here? That's, for me, that needs answering. That question needs answering. It also ignores the fact that the electromagnetic pulse energy platform would have been presumably wheeled around on the back of a truck. So surely base personnel would have seen that and not confused it with an anomalous object. As invariably these incidents were reported, it was claimed that UFO-type objects were seen hovering over the base before speeding off at high speed, which were not possible for any Earth-based craft. So when you consider that there are trillions of dollars of US taxpayers' money which cannot be accounted for within the US Department of Defense's expenditure, and year on year it seemingly fails internal audits, and in 2024 was the latest episode where this happened, and it was the 7th time in a row that it had happened. where it seemingly failed an internal audit. It points to elements within the USA's power structures that were operating outside of US government control and oversight and are not answerable to anyone. It seems that they can do whatever they want and not be held accountable for it. I would hazard a guess that this scenario is also happening in other countries. However, I've not seen any proof of that. But I do hope and pray that it isn't, but I fear deeply that it may be. For me, if all that was written in that Wall Street Journal article is true, which I don't believe it is for 1 minute, but I do think there is an element of truth within it. I believe that it hints at another version of an alternative reality that I just do not want to believe to be true. So the Wall Street Journal article, it seems to me, infers that the whole worldwide UFO phenomena is a result of a massive disinformation exercise being orchestrated by a small part of the United States government, which is acting with no checks and balances and is not answerable to anyone or held to account by anyone. Then it has its own military and siphons off money from the US public purse illegally for its own purposes. And it has to be also said that it has orchestrated a worldwide program of disinformation regarding UFOs to meet its own agenda for at least the last 80 years, if not longer. And this has involved the following: terrifying people of all ages, going about their business, abducting people and conducting all sorts of bizarre and awful experiments on them, leaving many of them with psychological, mental scars and physical scars for life, physically attacking people who are no threat to them or not displaying any signs of aggression towards them, people being physically or psychologically harmed, have come into contact with what appear to be UFOs or unknown entities, murdering poor defenseless animals and removing their bodily organs, allowing human beings to be flung into space inside glorified tin cans, and in some cases these poor individuals, of brave men and women, have ended up losing their lives when allegedly they had the technology to explore the solar system and beyond, far before when the United States and other worlds' space programs started. This unknown body also appears to be able to break both US and international laws with impunity, and it seems that there is nothing which anyone can do about it. I know that this picture seems highly disturbing, especially when you consider all the pieces of the jigsaw. It does point to a very dark, disturbing and terrifying place. So for me, I strongly suspect that this article was written on instruction by someone or some US government department that does not want the truth to come out about what has really been going on with regards to the UFO phenomena. And in itself, it is yet another smokescreen of deception, lies and gaslighting put out by the power brokers of this world in a vain attempt to try and cover up what is really going on and put us off the scent. So I know that some people may find what I have said today to be deeply disturbing, and many may not believe a word of what I have said, and that's absolutely fine. I understand it. I do get it. I really do. But all I would ask you to do is do your own research, because there is something here that is not right. It's got a really, really bad stench coming off it, and it simply just does not add up. However, remember, there are still many great, courageous and good people in our beautiful world and in the universe more widely, and that the power of the light and goodness is immeasurably stronger and more powerful than the forces of darkness and negativity, and always will be. In conclusion, I just want to thank you for watching my show, and if you enjoyed it, please hit the like button, please share the content around, and please subscribe to my channel. And finally, I want to leave you with some footage from the incredible film by Al Reinhardt called For All Mankind. You can find this film on my channel, and I can't recommend it highly enough. And when you watch it, I hope you get as much enjoyment and pleasure out of watching it as I have done down the years. So remember, guys, please take care of each other. Hold the power brokers of this world to account. Keep your eyes on the skies and stay curious. And may your God bless you. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please take care of each other and share some love and kindness around the world. And I'm just going to let you watch the little clip of the film. Take care. Bye. And I'll be back real soon. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Somebody up there likes us. Don't run into our home.
I felt like I was an alien as I traveled through space. But when I got on the moon, I didn't feel that at all. I felt at home there, even though the Earth was a long ways away. We could see it directly above, about the size of a marble, and realize that we're there, but by the grace of God. I felt like I was at the end of a thin cord that could be cut at any time. It was precarious, but yet I felt comfortable. I felt something other than just what we can visually sense. A spiritual presence was there. Perhaps it is because so many people on the earth were focusing their attention. They were maybe sending signals to us somehow. I sensed, I guess in a way much like maybe the first man on the earth would have sensed, like Adam and perhaps Eve, as they were standing on the earth and they realized they were all alone. There was no one else on the earth, but yet they had that special communication. And I guess it was similar to the feeling I had on the moon when I realized that Dave Scott and I were the only two on this vast planet, another world. We were the only two there. We felt an unseen love. We were not alone.
Hi, big eye. Hi there, Charlie. This is Gene, and I'm on the surface, and as I take man's last step from the surface, there's an everlasting commemoration of what the real meaning of Apollo is to the world. We'd like to uncover a plaque that has been on the leg of our spacecraft that we have climbed down many times over the last 3 days. The words are, "Here man completed his first exploration of the moon. May the spirit of peace in which we came be reflected in the lives of all mankind."
go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
There's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. With the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. I'm at the foot of the ladder. I'm going to step off